thinking brain one. You have to think ahead, and you have to know what you're doing and how you acquire it. And wealth can be evil, but it also can be good. And I'm finding out that even through my lifetime, I'll give you a little bit of testimony. I was born a farm boy in 1934.
Before we begin our
By
class.
the time I was
The first one is
12 years old, I was helping my dad to be able to acquire what he needed on the farm. And so even after I was in high school, for an example, my dad says, well, I got 3 farms, and two of you boys stay back, and I'll give you education later. It was 5 boys. And so I said I wanted to be an electrician, and he kept that in mind. But how wealth gets acquired, because there's a future that comes, and you have to be educated. It isn't just going to your computer or your cell phone and playing games. You start building on your future, and if you're, say, even if you're an apprentice, you can build yourself up to a journeyman, and you go from a journeyman to a foreman, and also to master foreman. But that was part of my life. And when I started working, my dad was going to have his farm wired. I think I mentioned this before. But he knew that I wanted to be an electrician. And when the contractor came out there, he says, I only got 1 man. Can one of your boys help? And my dad says, Gene, there you go.
Here you go.
And just about a year later, I was working for him. And because I could speak the language in the community I was, that gets a gain. But on the other hand, he was flying from farm to farm. He couldn't even drive anymore. And then one day he couldn't clear the trees, and he killed himself.
Oh.
So his wife closed the business down.
Wow.
But it was an asset for me, because after that, I found my dad for about 3-4 years for nothing, free. And then finally I got married, and I needed a car. And my dad didn't want to give me the $800 I needed for the car, so I went to work for my uncle. But on the other hand, things multiplied after that, because there was a big company that was coming in to make barbecue briquettes, and it was a big manufacturing plant. And so I went out there. I was working for 93 cents an hour. Can you imagine that compared to what you got to make today? But I'm using that as a factor, because you can't be looking at what you're doing way back then. But anyway, after about 3-4 months, I was working as a laborer for the 93 cents. And then one of the head men in the office found out that I had 1 year experience of being an electrician. They had 1 electrician on the job. So they came to me and says, will you go work as an electrician? I says, fine. When I got there, they says, wait a minute, just the 2 of you ain't gonna be able to finish this. So he says, we gotta take all the mechanics, all the laborers. I had 30 people, and I was 18 years old.
Wow.
Working for me.
Yeah, working
and
for you.
One guy above me, he was doing the drafting and all the plans. You see how this, I am trying to say something to you. There are stepping stones. You have to prepare yourself.
Yes.
Because you don't know when it's going to happen. Even as a construction worker, even as an electrician, I knew how to do electrical, so I watched everybody else, for an example. And then my son went to Washington, D.C. He started a business. He needed a plumber. Well, he said, Dad, how much do you know about plumbing? And he says, I've been watching the plumbers. I know what they do.
It's a learning experience, right? Anything's an opportunity to learn.
See how it escalates?
Yes.
But if you're just doing what you know how and focus just on that alone, where's it going to take you? So in a lifetime, even for an example, I got lung cancer and had something on my lungs. So I went to Mayo Clinic in Rochester, and they did the surgery on me. But I was friends with the surgeon, and he knew who I was, and he knew my capabilities and my testimonies. And he put me in a room with another man that had lost all of his lung, and he wanted to die. And within 2 days, he didn't want family to come in. I had him talking. I said, hey, sure, you lost part of you, but it's time for you to leave a legacy.
Mm-hmm.
Bring your family in and finish out your last days with them.
With them, yeah.
But you know what he did for me then? A doctor came as I was being discharged, and he said, Gene, he says, we tested the cancer. If you took out of your lung, I lost a third of my right lung.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, we couldn't find anything. And I says, well, he says, probably attributed to smoking, because I smoked for about 5 or 6 years when I was a teenager.
Wow.
I says, no, I quit 30 years ago. That don't make any sense. He says, just because what you did to that man in the hospital, I'm going to take your cancer and send it to New York.
Mm-hmm.
He sent it to New York, and they tested it. They couldn't find anything. And then at the last thing, he says, well, we'll throw it out, or after doing all their testing, and one of the doctors says, no, let's don't throw it out. Let's burn it.
Mm-hmm.
So they burnt my cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And asbestos.
And that's when they found the asbestos.
But see, I'm using that as a pushing point. I went back, and as I was walking through the mall for an exercise, I met another guy, and he was telling me that how many people that I worked with in the last 20 years before that were in the same buildings that I was. We don't know when it happened. And so all of a sudden, he tells me about this lawyer in Fargo, so I go to the Fargo lawyer, and she sets it up so I'm the guinea pig to be able to sit in with 50 different lawyers from 50 different companies.
Wow.
Because everybody that was working on that powerhouse was installing asbestos, and they didn't want to be the one that was going to get hit.
Mm.
And so I spent a whole day, and they couldn't get anything out of me because I didn't know when it happened, how it happened, but I did the right things. And even my lawyer came to me afterward. She couldn't be there. She came to me afterward and she says, you really did a good job. 500 electricians, plumbers, carpenters that had worked with the job for me for
Were
20
exposed.
years in there got the settlement.
Mm.
But the wealth, from 93 cents
Mm-hmm.
to $500,000.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was
Wow.
some of my settlement.
Yeah.
But I didn't take that money and put it into what I had. I put it into resources, like working in India.
Mm-hmm.
I planted maybe over $1 million in India alone, schools, teachings. We got 12,000 pastors there, giving all the literature they need, the books that they need to be able to accomplish leadership,
Right.
teachers. And we've got 4 schools started just because of the disease now.
Wow.
We got one of them that can't get finished because the government shut us down, the workers couldn't come.
So you never despise small beginnings,
Now,
right?
what's going to happen? Are you ready? And this is the reason we're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
How much wealth can you achieve?
Mm-hmm.
And even when I was a young man, I said I was going to be a millionaire by the time I was 42.
Mm-hmm.
But that lung cancer, I lost $1 million. See,
But you still turned it into
but
something,
if
right?
you can have greed and start using it for yourself. But I'm going to ask you a question. What is the greatest resource that you have as a businessman or even as a worker that's next to you? What is the greatest source?
The greatest source as a businessman.
Businessman or even the company that you're working for, what is the greatest asset that's going to make money or make wealth?
Being able to speak into the lives of the people, really.
Yes,
I mean,
the people that are working
the people
for
that are working for
Yes.
you, to help them to succeed, because if they succeed, you succeed.
Yeah, amen. And if you treat them well, they will do the best they can do.
Yes.
They were interviewing a man from China, for an example, and he is about as rich as Bill Gates. He was doing the same thing Bill Gates was doing. And they were interviewing him, they asked him the question, what are you going to do with your wealth? Are you going to build a foundation to leave something for people behind? And he says, no. He says, I'm doing it right now. He says, everybody that works for me, every end of the year or whatever it is, they get their bonuses, but it puts them in a place where he's treating me right. Look what I got.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they put more effort into it.
That's right. But that's one of the things that most I've found, after I manage people, and I've been doing that for many, many years. And one of the things that I found is that those people that are all about themselves, they don't last very long. They burn out quickly, and the ones who get the most done, the most satisfaction from their job, the ones who get the most promotions and move ahead, are those who recognize that if I sow into the people that work for me, if I help them to be better than when they started, if I can, educate them and help them, challenge them to grow, encourage them to grow, then those are the ones that succeed.
They're the ones that
Those are
start jobs.
those are the ones. Yeah, those are the ones that get to the next level. And it's not that it's selfish; it's that they're going there because they're investing in someone, and that's invaluable.
I know life experience is great, and I think that even the people that follow you, even like what's happening even in India and Africa right now, people are hearing about what I had taught in the last 12 years. And they're saying, what you said in the last 12 years is, even with the disease, now it's coming to pass. Because our schools are being closed down. And I kept saying, we need to be using technology. And this is my inspiration for anybody that wants to create wealth, is what is the future? Even like Tesla sending all the satellites up into heaven. And he says every home and every village is going to have Wi-Fi. What does that mean for us?
Right.
And this is the reason I'm pushing this button that we have and access to the Wi-Fi. And the sooner we get it in, even like Morty's saying, every home shall have an Android.
Well, I tell you, okay, so you mentioned that, and I keep thinking of, and I think I mentioned this the very first meeting that we had, the Kuna Indians, over off the coast of Panama. So there you have a society that doesn't even have electricity. They're very industrious. They work hard. They do a lot of things in their, they're still living in grass huts.
It's a good testimony.
Right? Yes. But what the government of Panama did says, okay, we want to help these people to be more industrious, to come into, society, to be better connected to society. So what they did is they gave them all cell phones. Now you say, well, okay, they don't have electricity. How are they going to charge them? What they did is they put a solar stack in the middle of the community. They put the batteries and the charging stations that are solar. They have plenty of sunlight in the middle of nowhere, right? And they go there every day. They charge their stations, right? And they have cell phones. So even this, they can be watching us.
Yes.
And I know that I know for a fact that when we broadcast, that they do watch.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm here in America. They're in Panama on an island. Just the biggest island is 5 by 7, and there they are watching this very broadcast, and they're learning from the things that we teach. So what you're saying and the vision that you had is very, very important, because if it can work for someone that lives in a little island that's isolated in the middle of the ocean, it can certainly work for someone that lives on a big continent.
Just think of that. Maybe our first teaching has to be able to teach them to be able to utilize that cell phone they're going to get in India. Africa, there are 7 countries that are wanting it now. There's 42 nations all over the world that have heard what I'm doing, and they're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
So what is going to happen in the next 5 to 7 years? I would say maybe it's going to be 7 years. And restoration comes through teaching. How do you change a nation is through education.
Yes.
And
yes.
we can be educating. So with Zoom and WhatsApp and all of Skype, I like Skype because you can even share screens. So when you're teaching, especially when you're teaching technology, hey, you can show them how you're even hitting the keys.
Yeah.
And pretty soon you got them going on.
The same thing.
I mean, the biggest obstacle we have is language barriers. And right now in India, we're looking for English-speaking people that are willing to teach and get them to be able to interpret into a system. We have 90 villages that want laptops.
90. Wow.
We have 50,000 kids. The governor of Andhra Pradesh wants to train 50,000 kids into an industrial state.
Wow.
Because
Wow.
he's
So you get
taken
them when
over
they're
this-
young,
he's
train
taken
them,
over
so-
this state, and he
yeah.
says, and so the first thing he did, I mean, just listen to this. He knows the only way that future is going to happen. So the first thing he built was a brand new airport, international airport,
Okay.
because
Wow.
he needs us to come.
Yes. Yes.
And be able to start teaching. But what's going to happen? He wants factories to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, once, importing nation, and he's got it right, importing nation is a poor nation.
Yes.
And exporting nation, you're growing food, you're whatever, there's a need in the world, this is what you're supplying. And once you get to that point, it comes back to who? The businessman, the working man, probably is going to get better wages. Like
And it
me,
trickles all the
starting
way
out
down
with
to the
93
families,
cents an
yeah.
hour, or are you getting, when I retired out of my electrical, I was making $27 an hour. Everybody thinks, oh, I got to be a business manager. Most business managers don't even make $15 to $20 an hour. But if you go into the apprenticeships and
The
whatever
tradesmen,
else,
yes.
industrial part of it, that's where the money is being made. And I'm going to say it, and I'll keep saying it: money makes money.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, I don't know, maybe you can add on to this, how do you invest it? And I'll give you a little bit of story. I had $50,000 in the bank, and it was just in a CD. And the manager calls me up, and she says, your CD is expired. Do you want to renew it? What do you want to do with it? I said, I'll come over. I go over and I talk to her. I've known her for years. I should have trusted her. But she says, you can take your $50,000 and you invest it into this bank, and you'll triple it in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And I'm saying, how does that happen? And I went home, I told the wife about it, and she had that hesitant too, so we didn't do anything. It did triple.
They did.
Yes.
Wow.
50,000, it went double, twice more. It was 150. I would have had 150,000.
Wow.
But how many times, even in a lifetime? But the reason I'm bringing this up, who do you
Opportunity.
trust? Who do you follow, and who do you listen to? So I got my first computer, and every night there was a half hour about the stock market. I'm listening to these guys, and I listened to them for maybe 3 or 4 years. And I would say that no matter where you go, there's always evil people, there's always
Oh yeah.
greed.
Oh yeah.
So you weed them out, and you take and you look at it. And even like now, I'll use myself as an example. I invested into Tesla. My money has tripled. So you have to know what future is going to be. The future is going to be electricity, because even like you mentioned, with the
coolness,
out
yeah.
there, if you don't have batteries, you're going to have a rainy day. The solar is not going to work.
That's right. That's right.
And as an electrician, I know that. But the greatest thing that we could achieve is how to be able to do controlling the lightning. And that is accessible. All we have to do is be able to take it and set up an instrument. Somebody's going to do this one day.
To capture it, yeah.
To capture
Harness
because
it.
that lightning that's coming down, that's between about 30 to 40,000 volts. It hits a tree and it just totally, or it hit a house
Obliterates
and
it.
it'll totally
Yeah.
destroy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you could take that and put it into a battery, so now they have access. And what's even the future? Electric cars. In 3 minutes or 4 minutes, you can charge the batteries in an electric car, and you can drive all the way to LA with one charge.
Well, that's coming, right? Yeah.
And now they got a blue gas. Now they added that to it, and it's 1 gallon will take you to LA.
Wow. So these are things that people are working on and
Yes,
building.
it's
Yeah.
happening,
This is
but
happening.
It's not even in the stock market. I'm listening, and I'm tied up with my stockbroker. And as soon as I know that stock's going to be available, I'm buying it. Because see, if you're not on the cutting edge, you'll never make more. And like I said it before, money makes money. So if you find out a good investment and you know what the future, even like Buffett, he's a rich man. He's worth $130 billion of cash alone in the bank. But he's investing he takes long investments. And he said the other day, and this is kind of strange, because he says, I got $100 billion I want to give away in the next 10 years. Who's he going to give it to?
The people who are going to invest and
Yes.
build something and do
achieve
something, create.
something.
Yes, of course.
So
of
you
course.
could be one of them if you could find out from him what is his focus, how's he going to spend this money, he's going to start businesses. He takes over businesses that are going bankrupt, puts good managers in there. He
Turns
creates
them
wealth.
around. Yeah.
And even if you're in a poor country, you can be in
An
India
entrepreneur.
or Africa where
Yeah.
you don't have anything. You're barely making meals from day to day. On the other hand, you start relating to people, friends, and educating each other and saying, okay, we can do this. Just think about it. I've got this in my mind, and I hope I'm not throwing something away. But an anti-magnetic motor, what can it do? Can it be built? I've got the parts at home. I've never done it yet.
Someone can figure it out.
And because you take a magnet, you lay it on the table, and you take opposite poles, and you can push it. That's power. One day we'll be able to do that.
To harness that. Wow.
But it takes
Well.
somebody to have a thought and be able to achieve it. And I've been setting on mine for maybe 10 years already.
But someone's going to do it, right?
What about you?
Oh, that's great.
What do you see for it?
Well, I think we're out of time, to be quite honest with you. But, well, I think that's the topic for next week.
So
We're gonna have to-
you can think about what I said. And
Yeah, we're going to have to
I know
build
you-
it, because I know we're out of time, but we're gonna have the topic for next week. Because there's so many different stories I can tell you about how even when I came over here, and several different businesses that I've started,
See,
you know.
this is what people need to hear, because they think that, they can come to America and all the wealth is just going to pour into them. No, it takes
Well, I came here with nothing.
labor, it takes
Yeah, I came here with nothing, and-
relationships, it takes
yeah.
everything, and it takes education to be able to achieve what you're doing.
And then the boldness to try something too.
Yes.
That's the whole
But
key.
it takes boldness. That is not by yourself. You get people around.
Of course, of course.
We can do this.
Of course. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can do this. So we just want to let you know that we'll continue this discussion next week. And we want to let you know that there's nothing that's impossible.
It's inventors